on top of that, what about Planet X, and what are you getting in that respect?
The Planet X stuff is a non-starter. It appears to be almost 100% disinformation from our viewpoint in terms of what we call SCED, the subject knowledge elucidates the domain. It's an analysis technique. And within our data sets, none of the Planet X material is as it is mythologically defined within our current culture. So yeah, there's probably large-sized asteroids, etc., zipping around, and even some mini planets, but there's no giant dwarf star kind of thing that's going to come on in and cause that kind of problem, because the solar system at one point cannot survive such a thing. It does not allow, for instance, the whole mythology does not allow for what we call those are the quanta effects of interplanetary kinds of material. In other words, not just gravity, but there's also anti-gravity, a repulsive force. And so those kind of things intrude in the idea. Plus, in our data sets, Planet X is within a very deep subset of what we call the space coast parts in an area of disinfo. We've never shown any of the Planet X info emotionally in the context in which we use come out of that category.
Okay, but it sounds like you're putting your interpretation in terms of the science that you know versus not being able to talk about the science you don't know.
Okay, there is that. There certainly is that certainly is the case. But absent that, the whole idea of the context of Planet X as it was originated and is most completely embodied by the Zeta Talk thing, that has never come out of the disinfo bin in our Space Coast parts. Now,
what about Nibiru? In other words, are you having problem with the choice of language here?
No, because we've got it modeled on all the various different parameters, all the way going back to Stitchin and everything, and besides which he was a very poor linguist and mostly did a lot of bad translations on some stuff. But the best representation of that kind of a model is a couple of the scientists out there, Paul Lovellette, who are working on the electric universe model, etc., and their concepts as to how these small little intrusions are going to act. So, no, I'm sorry, but we don't show Planet X. We also show all kinds of things that are current in pop culture as falling in that bin where we don't have an emotional archetype that supports them outside of the disinfo category.
Okay, and when you say you don't have an emotional archetype that supports it, is it possible that there's a reason why you wouldn't have an emotional archetype?
Sure. There are some artifacts within our processing that could certainly occur. I question, we have these debates internally, and I question sometimes whether, for instance, we would be able to accurately predict a meteor that would come on in and impact the planet, because it's so far out in left field, so to speak, that humans wouldn't necessarily be cognizant of it. However, if we're working on the alternate view of reality, that we're all interconnected in a common mind, and our minds are impacted by every other mind, et cetera, in a giant network, then I don't see how anything in reality could occur that could not communicate to that mind. So the fact that I don't particularly have it modeled shouldn't matter that much, because it should reveal itself in the language, and I should have to root around and discover what that is. Just for instance, as I did not have terrorism modeled, and the word showed up that said military accident money center, within 85 days of the middle of July. And it turned out to be, of course, the attack on the WTC and 9/11. And I didn't have terrorism modeled.
Okay, but I would counter that by saying because it wasn't perpetrated by terrorists.
Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Everybody applied the label of terrorism to it. So the fact that people are applying the label of Nibiru or Planet X or whatever is that it's applying to an underlying context that should show up if, in fact, there were some emotive basis in the fear. In other words, we got a context, again, one I had not modeled, electric-driven water. And if I'd been smart, I would have said force-driven water. What kind of force could drive a water? And then it would have dawned on me, a tsunami. I never even thought about it. I went the other way. I thought, electricity, storm, giant storm, hurricane going to hit them at the same time as the earthquake. Well, I was wrong about that. Electric-driven water was pretty straightforward, but we did not have any emotional quantifiers attached to the word tsunami in our lexicon.